that are different, they're able to do things that are different, they have a different set of mental skills, and one of the things about our sport, for example, is, and here I take a bit of a hit at swimming, and I'm sorry if I upset anybody who's swimming. Swimming to me is pretty damned easy if I'm coaching, and everybody's saying, no, it's not. Okay, that's fine. If I'm teaching swimming, I have to teach this kid how to swim, I have to teach them the technique, and then they have to go like hell to the other end. If they get there first, before somebody else, then they win. There's no, well, somebody's going to say you're wrong. I don't think there's too much mental, emotional decision-making, unless the only decision I've got is how fast can I go and how fast do I want to go. Whereas on the tennis court, you've got to make decisions. We all know it can go on forever and ever. If your name is Andy Murray, you find a little bit of fluff comes onto the court at the wrong time and you lose a final. All sorts of things can go wrong. Now, swimmers, as far as I know, don't have to cope with a bit of fluff. Not that I've ever seen Andy cope with a bit of fluff, but there we are. Okay, so this is what we're talking about at the moment, which is this group, and you can't read it, I'm sorry, but the point I'm trying to make is you can put up what they can do physically at different ages, what they can therefore do technically at different ages. You can't do it technically if you can't do it physically. What they can do tactically will depend on where they are mentally and emotionally. Little kids can't make decisions. I can promise you that for 2 counts. One, if you go into McDonald's, and don't tell me you don't, but if you go into McDonald's, how many menus are there for kids? How many menus are there for kids? How many? 1. Okay, how many menus are there for adults? Hundreds. Well, not hundreds, because they won't learn them out. Why is that? Kids can't make decisions. They don't want all these kids going, I don't know. So, right, okay. So that's my first point. Child development, which is what that chart's about, is about player development. And this is what we need to think about, okay? The model itself is based on growth and development and maturation that will take place in any kid, whether they play tennis or whether they don't, okay? But unfortunately, for us as tennis players, that underpins the development of what we can do in tennis. There are things we can't do in tennis. For example, I've already said it, physical, mental, emotional, affect technical and tactical. It affects how much training they do. It affects how much competition they do. It affects what competition is. And competition to a 7-year-old is a very, very different issue than competition to a 17-year-old or a 57-year-old. It isn't the same thing, and if you just think about that, competition is an adult concept, totally adult concept, that we in our wisdom as adults have put onto kids. The question therefore is, when we are working with those kids, do we have any knowledge of that? Do we know the child development stuff, and can we link this to the coaching? In other words, this is about how. How do we, not what is very clear. When is very clear. How has never, as far as I know, been dealt with until recently in terms of how we as coaches behave. Will that actually affect what happens with the kids? We need to know what they can do at different ages. We need to be able to list the different things that they can do, and I'll come to that in just a second. And we need to link those to the player's development. Now I'm dealing with ages, and even though I'm dealing with ages, within those ages there will be kids who can't do things. For all sorts of reasons they can't do it. We are staying at the stadium. Our last night out on the ice, to our joy, was a game of ice hockey. Well, I think it was ice hockey. Was it ice hockey? Bandy. That's it. I've never heard of bandy in my life. I don't know. Anyway, there were these kids. Who were the kids who had the is it called a puck? The ball? Where's the ball? Oh, I don't look like a ball. So they had a ball. Who were the kids who had the ball? The best ones who happened to be, also begins with B, the biggest ones. All the other little ones were running about and all the big ones had the ball. That's what happens. Okay. So there will be things that big ones can do, and there will be things that little ones don't get a chance to do. Alright, and I've put the last bit underneath it. Okay, this is what I mean by competencies, and this looks pretty complicated, and I apologise. If anybody wants these, they can certainly have them. Okay, this is, for example, this is what I did. This is what physical development can happen when. This is about all the things that happen in tennis physically. balance, agility, coordination, speed endurance, in other words, being able to do the same thing over and over. Alright, those are all the skills, probably not all of them, but most of them, that you will actually get in tennis. My question when I'm working with 10 and unders is what can they do? My question with 11 to 17-year-olds is what can they do? Because there's not much point in me trying to do something that they're not ready to do. For example, anything that is in white basically says leave it alone. Right, if they're in this age group. Anything that's in the next colour says you can have a go at that, you can start to do it. In red, it means you really should be working on it. It's important that we actually do that with the kids because that's what the kids need. By the time it gets to that dark green up there, that basically means you should have already done it. Now the trouble comes for the kids if you haven't done it. So you need to know, first of all, what they're capable of doing, and then you need to know what they can actually do competence-wise. This is a technical development one.